Hi, it's Daphne. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about all the books I read in March, aka my March wrap-up. In March, I read 4 books. This is less than I usually strive for in the month, but I was adjusting to a new morning routine, getting into the habit of going to the gym, and just work life, so I didn't have that much spare time or like leftover energy during the week to read. But I did manage to read these 4 books, so I'm happy about that, even if I didn't read as many as I typically strive for. Out of those 4 books, 1 was a sci-fi romance, 1 was a contemporary romance, and 2 were fantasy. So the first book I read was Nightchaser by Amanda Bouchette. This is the first book in the Endeavor series. It is a futuristic sci-fi romance novel. It takes place well into the future. Most of humanity is born away from Earth. They don't have any experience with Earth. The main plot of the overarching series is that there's this overlord who is very oppressive across the galaxy. He's pretty much in control of all the planets and all of humanity that are out in space. And Tess is a captain on this rogue ship. She and her crew and like this larger community of resistant people are fighting against the overlord. So they gather like supplies and stuff for communities in need, and they do everything they can to try to gain freedom from this guy. In the first book, it doesn't go that much into like a war or anything, but it seems pretty imminent. So where the romance comes in, there's this guy, Shade. He is a bounty hunter, and because Tess is like this rebel, there's a bounty on her head, and he wants to cash in on it. It is like the largest bounty anyone has ever seen. Tess has a secret past, and she's very special in this magical way that we're slowly learning about. So he meets up with her and has an instant connection with her before he knows who she really is, and she doesn't know he's a bounty hunter, and it's them getting to know each other and this dynamic through the story. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I did not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Amanda Bouchette's Kingmaker series. I think that's what it's called. That series was really, really fun, and I always like thinking back to it. I would definitely reread it and recommend it. But this one, I just didn't jive with as much. Some of the space stuff, I couldn't really visualize that well, and I wasn't that interested in the plot. And sometimes I felt like the overarching plot would just get ignored. Like, it would seem important, but then they would just like do random everyday things. And I'm like, okay, like, where's this going? It just felt really disjointed to me personally. And also, the writing style in this was strange to me because in Tess's perspective, it would be in first person, but it would switch to Shade's perspective in other chapters, and it'd be written in third person, and I did not enjoy that. I will say I did start the second one, even though originally I wasn't planning on continuing, but it fit well with my Aurelium Readathon challenge. She's changed that writing style, so it stays in first person. Like if it's with Tess, it's in first person in Tess's mind, and when it goes to Shade, it switches to first person in his mind. Then I read Written in the Stars. This is a contemporary sapphic romance. I read this as a part of my Aurelium Readathon prompts, so I had to read this book. If I didn't have to read it, I might have DNF'd. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with the book. I just don't find myself loving contemporary recently. It's just like too normal sometimes, the plots in contemporary, and we just go into like these everyday, like normal situations, and I'm just like not as excited to read them versus like a fantasy romance where I'm like learning new stuff and the stakes are higher. So this book is between 2 women, Darcy and Elle. They are set up by Darcy's brother, who is Elle's like business partner, to go on this date. The first date goes terribly wrong, and they both write each other off, but Darcy's kind of tired of being harassed by her brother getting set up on these dates she doesn't want to go to, so she lies to him and says the date went fantastic and that like she's going on another date with Elle. And then things happen and they end up in this fake dating situation. So as the book goes on, obviously they get to learn more about each other, they start to have real feelings, yada yada yada. Elle is really into horoscopes and like Saturn moon rising and whatever. I don't know that much about that stuff, but if you're really interested in that, it is talked about in depth in this book, so that could be really fun for you. I ended up giving this book a solid 3 stars, and it was cute, but I will say I like skimmed some of the like mundane boring stuff. I was like, I have to read this book, let me just get through it. Which is kind of a shame. I kind of want to just be able to enjoy the books that I pick up more. And then the third book I read was The Fifth Season. This also had to do with a prompt. I really enjoyed this book. I have a reading vlog where I vlog my whole experience and emotions like going through this book. It is very intriguing. It is a fantasy if you haven't heard of it. It has to do with this volatile world where the earth is very unpredictable. There's like these disasters that are always happening, but there are these people that have particular powers that I won't go into because it's very, very fun to learn about as you go through the story. So there are three main characters: a young girl, a woman starting her career in this very special organization, and a mother who is looking for her kidnapped daughter. So her daughter was pretty much kidnapped by the father, and she's also grieving the loss of her son because the husband killed her son for reasons that he had. They're not very good reasons, but like you'll learn more about how this world works, the prejudices in this world, the caste systems in this world. There was just so many interesting topics in this book. I would definitely recommend it. I ended up giving it 4 stars only because I felt the ending was very strange. I mean, there were like big climactic ending story points that I really enjoyed and found very interesting, but like the last line was supposed to be like a cliffhanger, and it just kind of left me like, what? But I will continue this series. The writing is very good. Literally every time I turned the page, I was like, what is happening? I'm like stunned, I'm crying, I'm heartbroken, I'm intrigued. I need to know more. So if that's the kind of book you're looking for, if you want to be like slowly like peeling the onion of this story, this is the perfect book for that. I would definitely recommend it. And then the last book I completed in March was The Sword of Kaigen. I really pushed this book to the limit. I completed it on the very last day of March. So this book is about Mamoru and Mizaki. Mizaki is Mamoru's mother. They live in this fantasy world. They're not from Earth, it's like a whole nother planet. And there are many people in this world that have magical powers that control different elements. So in this particular country, a lot of the power wielders can manipulate water. So Mamoru and his mother and his family are in this very powerful warrior family that is very well known for their swordsmanship and their kind of like connection to the old world. This part of the country is very like old-fashioned, where the other parts are like moving on to new technologies and like cell phones and computers and things like that, where this community is very isolated and separate from that. It's like stepping back in time. And you learn, and this isn't a spoiler, I don't believe, that their emperor has been lying to them about a lot of things. It has a lot of like North Korea vibes in that sense, where they've been lied to for a long time, or they're forced to stay quiet about things. And this is the story of like Mamoru learning about that, and Mizaki, who was a housewife, coming to terms with her past and actually being like this badass warrior woman and needing to bring that part of herself out again to protect her family. There is a war in this book. There's a lot of action scenes and fighting scenes and really cool magic. There is a lot of like political stuff going on in the background, a lot of mysterious machinations by their emperor, and you don't know why he's lying to them. I was really excited to learn more about that aspect. Like, why is the emperor lying? What's really going on? What don't these people know? Why are they compliant to these things? Why do some people know the emperor is lying, but like they continue to go along with what he says, you know? What is going on in the other countries? Why is there a war? What is the motivations of the war? Those things I was interested in, and I feel like they never got answered. So if you like the fight scenes and stuff, it's really cool. The magic is cool, the family you care about and stuff like that. Though I will say one of the relationships in this book I felt like evolved so suddenly and so drastically that it was kind of like whiplash for me. So I didn't like that much. I mean, I just accepted it, but I didn't love the way it was executed. And then I didn't learn anything about the political reasonings. So it's a standalone, so I guess I'll never know. And then at the very end, they like added this other character, and he had all this stuff going on in his like backstory that he was telling Mizaki about. And I was like, well, that sounds like it would lead up to another book. but like it just ends and apparently it's a standalone. So I'm like, so you're just telling me all these things for no reason? So I don't get it. I really wanted to give this 5 stars. It's compared to like Avatar: The Last Airbender, obviously because of the elemental magic, but they're not similar at all. I was disappointed in myself that I didn't love this as much as I had hoped, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. I don't particularly care about fighting scenes that much. I thought they were well written. I could really visualize what was going on, so it was executed well. There's no complaint on that end. I just personally don't need to read 100+ pages of fight scenes. But if you do, this book would be great. And I also love that it is a diverse read, supporting minority authors, minority stories, minority fantasy, everything. So it definitely had its shining moments. There are definitely books I've rated higher than this that aren't as good quality, but I basically rate my star system on personal enjoyment. It's all, is it subjective? Is it subjective? Yeah, it's all subjective. Those are all the books I read in March. Let me know your thoughts of all these books. I'm so sorry that mine were not as positive as I would have hoped. 3 out of 4 books being 3 stars is not what I strive for. But I am trying to read more out of my comfort zone, and I am doing a readathon, so sometimes when you force yourself to read, maybe it jades your experience. At least maybe it jaded my experience a little bit, but I don't know. I hope you enjoyed this video either way. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in another video. Bye!